In this update, we've got daily storm chances with severe weather all the way through the rest of the week into the weekend. Then next week, we have a slight shift in the overall pattern, plus an update on the tropics. Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here with your Wednesday morning update. Let's take an expansion this morning and take a look at the overall big picture and really delve into what's happening out there. You can definitely see what's staring you right in the face is actually Hurricane Bonnie out here in the open waters of the Pacific. That actually became a major hurricane yesterday. It's had a long way to go. It started off the coast of Africa, and then we have multiple waves that are coming off the coast of Africa, but overall it's fairly quiet in the overall tropics right now through the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico. All the action is into the US, where we have these boundaries and this ridge of high pressure to the south, and just to the north of there we've got just continuous relentless amount of steady stream of severe storms that's going to be ongoing really for the rest of the week into the weekend. So we've got a lot to talk about. Let's even expand the view even bigger than that, and the northern hemisphere view for the rest of the week. Overall, we've got a 594 dm high pressure down here in the basically the midsection of the country. We've got numerous heat advisories, heat excessive heat warnings out there. But overall, the overall trough for the rest of the week is going to be well to the north in Canada. We just have this little weakness in the ridge to the north of that boundary. That's where all the severe weather is going to be taking place. And then out here off the Pacific Northwest, we're going to be seeing slight increases in anomalies as the high will slowly shift as we go into next week. We have a slight shift in the overall pattern with a developing trough that's going to be digging into the parts of the Northeast, into the Ohio Valley. That's going to bring a little bit cooler conditions and bring actually as this ridge of high pressure will slowly kind of move itself further west as we go into next week. It'll eventually start warming up on the West Coast, and you're going to be experiencing that ridge of high pressure. But closer in, what's happening today? Yes, we have another day of relentless storms. We dealt with those derecho type storms yesterday. Yeah, we had wind gusts packing up to 99 miles an hour, so some of the top wind gusts in South Dakota yesterday. And the skies turned green all the way up there too. So it was kind of an eerie day with all those wind threats, and that same threat's going to be really kind of happening today. Not as intense, but we're still going to be looking at right along that boundary. We're going to have storms blowing up into portions of Montana, diving across into South Dakota with some heavier rain, and just to the north of there, tailing around this little front, we could be looking at some pretty significant storms breaking out with some very heavy rain just east of Denver here, and then portions of Nebraska getting into Iowa, all the way through Illinois into Chicago. But then there's a southern branch could actually turn severe into Kentucky, into Tennessee, going into the Carolinas and parts of Virginia. So definitely be on high alert, while areas to the south are going to be baking under that ridge of high pressure. And then as we go into tomorrow, kind of the same deal, right along this boundary up in Montana again, we're going to have more storms kind of breaking out into parts of Montana. That'll swing over to parts of the Dakotas now, but it still swings further south into South Dakota. And again, right along this boundary in Nebraska, getting into Iowa, portions maybe a little bit further south this time, as the ridge will, as the ridge moves, the storms move a little bit. So it kind of follows this boundary. And now it's going to be taking shape and start sneaking into portions of Georgia as we go into the day on Thursday. So definitely be on high alert down there into the southeast. And then as we go into your Friday time frame, again, more storms kind of blow it up in Montana, traveling across east, southeast around this boundary. The shift of the ridge of high pressure will slowly shift a little bit further off into the west. That brings the storm threat a little bit further south. So now we got a good chunk of Kentucky breaking out into some of that heavier rain. Now that's actually going to sneak into portions of Tennessee as we go into the day on Friday, as much of Texas and Oklahoma is under that ridge of high pressure, and now out to the west too. There's not much happening. Pretty clear skies, comfortable conditions, but that ridge of high pressure will slowly shift your way as we go into next week. But just as we go into the weekend, again, we even to day 4 and day 5, slight risk for severe storms. Montana again, going back in North Dakota, and that'll swing over in portions on Sunday back into the Dakotas. Now this will be over Minnesota by then with the severe storms as we go into the weekend. But further south, it's all about the heat, guys, as that ridge of high pressure as we go into Saturday and Sunday time frame. These are actual temperatures, and you're talking easily 100 degrees. You can see the graph in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen here, well into the triple digits in much of Texas and Oklahoma, getting into Kansas. Even parts of eastern Colorado could be into the triple digits, or at least approaching the triple digits, as that ridge of high pressure will really start to dominate into the midsection of the country. And just to the north of there, that's where you have that storm threat, and the heat index is going to be cranking as well. It's really going to be taking shape. That ridge of high pressure is going to be locked over the great state of Texas. And man, it's just been bone dry out there. And now we're talking heat indexes of like 110 range. So that is dangerous stuff. We're probably going to be having some excessive heat warnings out here by then. So definitely be on high alert and take extra precaution if you have to work outside, and take plenty of breaks and stay hydrated, because it's been a day after day, and it doesn't even really cool off at night. I mean, these temperatures haven't been even getting below 80 degrees down here, so you don't really take a respite even at the nighttime hours. But we are showing subtle hints. So as we take a look at the overall setup as we go into your Sunday time frame, I showed you these relentless fronts that are going to be moving through. By then, we could have one of those fronts kind of get out into the open waters of the Atlantic and actually form maybe a little bitty mini low pressure system. If you recall, this is kind of how, like, Tropical Storm Colin actually formed on a little quick spin up. So we always have to watch these systems, especially anytime you get into these surface troughs or surface lows that you get off into the open waters of the Atlantic. I mean, you got this is hurricane season, guys, and you got the ridge of high pressure locked over portions of the Bermuda here, as we just have these trail of waves coming off the coast of Africa. Not going to be forming any tropical entities or anything, but yes, we'll definitely have to be kind of keeping a second eye on this little feature out here into the open waters of the Atlantic as we get into the weekend. The latest guidance, ensemble members have about a 20% chance of this actually even forming in some sort of tropical entity. So hey, like I said, you got to watch everything this time of year, and if it does form, it kind of looks like most of the instability, or at least if it does turn tropical, will be heading off well out to sea. But down further to the south, it's going to be bringing up enough moisture. We could be looking at some heavier rains actually pushing a little bit further south as we go into Sunday with these multiple troughs. So now portions of the southeast, we got higher dew points back then. So Louisiana, probably into Arkansas, getting into Mississippi, into Alabama, into Georgia, into the Carolinas. We could be looking at some of these diurnal type setup thunderstorms taking shape down here along this, activated by this little frontal boundary. So we have to looking out for some daytime heating thunderstorms down there into the southeast. So, but as we transfer into Monday, there's that coolness dripping a little bit further to the south. Now we're talking it's going to reach into portions of Florida by then with those rain showers, as that low pressure center tries to get its act together, now down to a possibly 1,007 millibars. So that's almost on the cusp of somewhat tropical. It'd have to have some sort of low level swirl or tight circulation. So either way, this would be a low pressure. If it did form, it'd be well off to sea, but it's going to bring some rains by then with this kind of bat-tailed moisture into portions of the southeast, going to later this weekend into early next week. And then with the difference in the overall pattern that's coming up, we do have a fairly significant trough that's going to be digging down from Canada this week, and that's going to be slowly shifting, eventually headed into the upper Great Lakes, and eventually getting into the Ohio Valley. That's going to bring some unsettled weather back for them, but again, bringing a little bit cooler conditions for July. But the ridge of high pressure, the overall shift, the ridge of high pressure will slowly slowly move off further off into the west. So as it does, it allows this front, or at least this instability, to get a little bit further off into the south and kind of a backdoor front. So you might take a little bit of a respite in portions of Texas with some of the triple digit temperatures you're going to be experiencing the rest of the next 7 days, as this ridge of high pressure, this 594 middle ridge of high, DM high pressure, will be shifting over into portions of the southwest by then. It'll be close enough, or at least moved further away enough, that'll allow at least somewhat cooler, somewhat kind of a, not 100-degree heat, maybe upper 90s, more a little bit average type temperatures of what you should be experiencing this time of year. But hey, on Wednesday or Thursday, it could be enough where we have at least some rain chances trying to sneak into Texas. I mean, they look at any precipitation probabilities they can get. This looks to be a week away, but it looks like it definitely sees that it's on the table as kind of a slight shift in the overall pattern. At least it'll put an angle of these little systems that'll come through and might sneak a little bit more welcome rains trying to sneak into portions of central Texas by then, and across the southeast. And then, like I mentioned, that ridge of high pressure will try to slowly shift and build a little bit further off into the west, as we have that pretty significant trough going to be digging in portions of the Ohio Valley. That'll bring the cooler conditions and the little bit more unsettled weather or back into portions of Ohio by then. And you can see it on the vorticity view. Yeah, we've got a pretty significant, by next Friday time frame, by the middle of the month, the high will be further enough off into the west. With that trough digging in, we could have more unsettled weather moving back into the picture, and portions of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, back into Pennsylvania by then, with this pretty significant trough that's going to be digging in by then. But overall, the next 10 days, you can see that overall 10-day temperature anomalies puts the ridge of high pressure in the most well above average temperatures across North Texas and portions of Oklahoma, as much of the ridge of a high pressure will be locked over the central part of the U.S. Any coolness, most of this will be in the form of next week. As we go into deeper next week, this is the overall 10-day anomalies. That cooler conditions will filter into the northeast, and eventually that ridge of high pressure will slowly shift, where they've been experiencing some pretty nice weather, even somewhat chillier weather at times. Well, they've had a quick warm up in the northwest, but overall it's been fairly average to cooler than average. But that's going to be changing as we get deeper into next week, with that ridge of high pressure slowly shifting your way. But overall, the 10-day precipitation anomalies over the next 10 days has much where the ridge of high pressure is going to be dominating. You got all the stinking air along with it, and not much rain to speak of. You might have some a little bit by that next overall Wednesday and Thursday time frame with that front nearby. But overall, the pattern is going to be traversing across and put those above average precipitation anomalies mainly into the portions of Montana, through the Dakotas, through Nebraska, back into Iowa, through Illinois, back into the Ohio Valley, and much with these little systems, these little cold fronts that are going to be hanging off the East Coast. Is going to be bring in some flooding rains back into portions of the Carolinas as we get deeper into next week. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.